Okay, this is the very first episode of the Hot Seat with Cam Perry, and I'm gonna have my other co-hosts say their names because it's the first broadcast and talk about what they're doing.
All right, my name is Paulo, and I've been going to UC Davis with like a couple years and stuff. So what I've been doing mainly just like a basketball fan that's out here, just trying to put my input.
All right. I'm Brandon. I go to UConn. I'm going to be going to my third year, and same as Paulo and Cam over here, talking a lot about basketball. So hopefully we can have a good show for you guys.
Okay, so the very first topic we're going to talk about is the summer league and who has impressed you the most. So first, I'm gonna go with Paulo. Who's the player that has impressed you the most now that the summer league is over and you probably had time to watch all the games or at least the highlights of the games?
I will. It's a kind of a tough pick for me, honestly, because I mean, honestly, I got to scratch Devin Booker off my list because I already knew. I was surprised that he was actually going to do summer league at first because he was already doing good for himself as a rookie. So, I scratched him off, not really even considering. But out of the two, I'd have to like pick two that is a kind of like a tie, and it's Tyus Jones and Ben Simmons. Tyus Jones really impressed me. I mean, I didn't expect the he would actually like burst out of nowhere for the T Wolves. I mean, you already had Ricky Rubio at the point, and then they drafted Chris Dunn, and I feel like Tyus Jones really stepped up in the summer league, and I think that's going to earn him some big minutes.
That's interesting that you said Ben Simmons because I think he's overrated. Like, I mean, if you look at his numbers, like he's only averaging 12 points per game in the summer league, and like his offensive game is horrendous.
I
See that?
think. Oh, go. You
Oh
want to go
no,
ahead?
go
Go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead, Brandon, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in turn of that, I think a big reason why he struggles offensively is probably because I think we've all seen his jump shot, and it's not pretty. But I mean, we all have heard the comparisons of how people think he might be a LeBron, and maybe the difference is as a rookie, LeBron kind of was able to take over games at points, but they do both seem to have struggled at their jump shot coming out the gate. But he is pretty big size. He does have pretty good floor vision. I think it'll come with time. And he's not going to a good situation himself in Philly. So
Yeah, no, definitely not. See, I mean, I'm more impressed with Ben Simmons is because I honestly I'm one of those people who do think he's overrated. So I had very low expectations for him in the summer league for some reason. That's why I feel like he impressed me the most because that passing is definitely something to watch. It's pretty fun to watch that what he does out there. But we're gonna that just remains to be seen whether his passing will actually affect the game
true.
in the real league.
So what about you, Brandon? Who's the player that's impressed you the most?
Um, well, similar to Paulo, how he chose a player who already played a year, maybe not as much. Cavalier Jordan McRae.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. That was actually a guy who I was about to say, but yeah, nice,
Now,
nice.
I'm gonna go along the same path as Paulo. How he did impress me, but what I have seen from him in the past, I mean, maybe he didn't show out as much as Devin Booker, and he probably didn't get the same amount of opportunities playing in Cleveland. How many times are you really gonna touch the ball when you got Kyrie and LeBron? But I think he did a pretty solid job. I mean, this is a guy that Cleveland picked up who, at one point last year, had broken the summer league record for points in a game. I think it was 61 or something like that. So he has the ability to score. He had a few games where he had a record for 33 points in one of the summer league games, and then the very next game he had 36. But yeah, to follow along the same path as Paolo, I will not choose Jordan McRae, but I'll choose his teammate Kay Felder, who got chosen in the second round by Cleveland, and they didn't even have a pick to begin with. They traded with Atlanta. I think they swapped money for him, I believe it was, for his pick. I think it was like 1.3 million or something like that. You're swapping that, and you don't really pay a rookie that much. I think coming out the second round, I mean, it does say how much they kind of value him, and he's a guy who struggles with his jump shot, but he was one of the guys like McRae that were heavily guarded on the Cleveland team. So I think if he actually makes the roster for Cleveland, he'll find a lot more open shots in that offense. And he does seem to have a few things going for him. He is small, but he has a vert. I think his vertical jump is around 44 inches or something like that. And he also has the ability to attack the basket. And he seems to also have his floater is pretty finessed. He seems to have that down. And I remember watching one game, I think they were playing the Lakers last week, and he had like 3 or 4 floaters in a row on back-to-back-to-back possessions. And it's just like, that just seems like a shot he can get at any time.
Yeah, I mean, McRae is a good pick. That's kind of one of the guys that I had, and then another guy who I'm surprised neither one of you guys have mentioned was Bobby Portis. Plays for the Bulls. He's definitely impressed me, like, because he's kind of, his game is real similar to, like, Jimmy Butler or Kawhi Leonard, people that are real physical, have a lot of energy, high energy guys, a lot of length.
That's true.
And he'd be perfect if Tom Thibodeau was still in the Bulls, because I feel like that's the type of player that he would definitely, love to have. I mean, because with I hate Fred Hoiberg for the Bulls. I hate him. He's a terrible coach. I think he should have stayed with Iowa State, because he just isn't meant for the NBA. I mean, because he pretty much ruined the team because the players that he had weren't, built for a system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the terms of
that's definitely a problem. Like.
Yeah. Oh, you go.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in terms of your pick with Bobby Portis, he was a guy on probably Chicago's roster, like you said, that maybe he needs more minutes in Fred Hoiberg's system. But also, I think he's not just a talented player that just took a summer or whatever and then came back the same. I was listening to the broadcast the other night when they were playing. I think he added about 20 pounds of muscle or something like that. So he does look bigger. He does look like he can handle himself, and he also will find more spots in the offense because Noah is now gone. He's a Knick, and Pau Gasol is now gone. And I don't know because before they were rumoring to be wanting to trade Taj Gibson, but now I don't know since those other two are gone. But I think Bobby Portis will get a lot of minutes in the system now.
I'm going to say right now, Bobby Portis, right now, most improved player next year.
I can see that. I mean, his 3-point shot's looking pretty good out there in the summer league. I actually impressed me myself. Like, I didn't think Bobby Portis would take that big of a leap, but I mean, seeing how he's playing in the summer league, I do think he'll be a candidate for that.
And so we're going to go to our next point. It kind of goes hand in hand. I'm not going to say the same player twice, because I already told you I don't really think that Ben Simmons has impressed me. But what player do you think has been the biggest disappointment for you in the summer league?
The kid that Phoenix drafted, Dragon Bender. They drafted him at 4. Now I know he didn't get a lot of hype, but if you're gonna get drafted at 4, I would expect a lot more out of you. I think he only averaged about 8 points a game. He only averaged an assist a game or something like that. And one alarming stat was he actually averaged 4 fouls a game. Now I don't believe in summer league do they track do they foul guys out, or how's the rules work in that?
It's I think it's 10 fouls.
10 fouls, right? It's something really crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like he fouled out, but it was like 4.5 fouls a game, and something like that in the NBA, that is not not good. And he is a 7-footer, and they've compared him to he could be like a Dirk or something like that, or maybe a Kristaps because of their size and their scrawny coming out. But a guy at that height picking up those kind of fouls, he's going to be dealing with a lot of big guys in the West, and it disappointed me not just with the scoring, but defensive-wise, because even if you're not big, just maybe with your height you can affect some shots, but he seems to be getting bullied. So I say he disappointed me.
What about you, Paulo? What player disappointed you the most?
For me, it's between the guy the Bucks drafted, Thon Maker.
Thon Maker, yeah.
And I know I'll get some flack for this, but I have to say Brandon Ingram. I expect a little bit more, but I do think that he will, come up into shape as the season goes on. Just the summer league, in the summer league, he kind of disappointed me. I thought he'd be able to power through a little more, but watching it made me realize how really scrawny he is compared to
Mm,
other
mm,
players.
yeah,
And I do think he needs to bulk up that frame because I mean KD was always pretty skinny back then, but I
yeah.
mean
He
KD
gets a lot
put
of
some muscle.
comparisons. So
Yeah.
It's funny that you said that because you kind of read my mind. You probably got some of the same notes I have about Brandon Ingram because I know Katie made a point. Actually, he made a point yesterday. He was talking about that he sees himself in
yeah,
Brandon Ingram, and I was like, that's ridiculous. That's probably the most ludicrous thing that he said because I watched Katie at Texas. I know how great he was.
yeah.
Ingram was nowhere near the player that Katie was his freshman year at Texas.
Yeah.
Like I knew that boy was going to be a superstar in the league. I mean, I told people straight up because he was scoring, points at will, pretty much.
I would agree with both your points with the that maybe well Kevin Durant's comparison. I mean, I could see similar parts, long, lanky, the ability to shoot, kind of dribble and create, but I mean, like you said, Cam, nowhere near as close as what Kevin Durant was doing in college and his first few years in the pros. But I'd also say the reason why he didn't disappoint me as much as you guys may believe is that it seemed a lot like the Lakers coaching staff was trying to get D'Angelo's head on right, and that it really flowed through probably getting D'Angelo the ball a lot. If you watch a lot of the games, he's taking a lot of the shots, and the thing with it, it's good that he's playing, but I was even though he shouldn't even be considered in the conversation, D'Angelo, because he was what was he, the second pick last year,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
I mean, it's good to get practice in that, but a guy of your caliber, I don't even see you really supposed to even being there in the summer league, even if you want to get some shots up. But it's really for the other guys to, get warmed up. You shouldn't even be. These guys are like fighting for jobs. You're a top five, top two picks. So it even seems like all right, even if you're going to play in it, it didn't seem like he was trying to get Ingram involved a lot. So I don't. Ingram should be have a higher standard to him, but I'd say that D'Angelo took the heat off of him for a little bit for that.
Yeah, I was shocked looking at his numbers, and actually his numbers were worse than Ben Simmons' numbers. Like you
Mm.
looked at their numbers like side by side, like they got about the same amount of points. Simmons got more assists and he got more rebounds than Ingram, which was alarming to me. But that's why I kind of grouped them together. I was like, both of them, were top three picks, and they both really didn't perform as well as some other players performed. I mean, I think Chris Dunn is going to be the best player in this draft.
Mm.
Actually,
Definitely. I'm surprised he actually slipped down to the pick that he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I thought he was going to go way earlier than that.
I
But
thought the Celtics should have drafted him, but I don't understand why they didn't. I mean, I understand why the Lakers and the 76ers made their safe picks because that's what they pretty much did. But I just feel like what I saw from Chris Dunn, the limited amount of stuff that I saw from him, I was really impressed, especially with how quick he can move from side to side with the ball. So
Now I got a question for you guys, talking about players that where they should have gone or why they may have dropped. What do you guys think about Buddy Hield? Do you think he fell a little bit? I think he fell.
I like I think see him in the summer league. I understand why he fell. You know, I
Mm.
I watched a lot of OU games last year. I live in Sooner country, so I'm kind of a little biased, and I really rooting for the kid. But
Yeah.
I just feel like the NBA length and the size of these players are really giving him a hard time. And even in college, the players that really were up on him when he was trying to shoot the ball, he struggled against.
Hmm.
And there really wasn't enough for that in college. And you see the NBA players actually putting a body on him instead of.
Yeah.
yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I thought Buddy Hield would go a little bit higher. I didn't understand why he dropped. Then watching summer league definitely made me realize that. But I do think that he can definitely make a name for himself as a jump shooter in the league. I'm not sure about his like superstar potential at this point, but I mean he's got a nice step back, and obviously he's got the range on the three. So I mean if he wants to focus on those points and get better at the NBA level of that I definitely think he can, be like I'd say like maybe what, like 15 points per game, 16 points per game in the future. But the superstar potential right now is just it's like waning a bit for me in my opinion.
I never thought he'd be a superstar. I think the biggest comparison for me, I thought he'd be like another JJ Redick type player. He
Well,
really, and that's another player that really didn't come into his own until probably his fourth or fifth year in the league. Like his first couple years, he wasn't anything special, but now he's a 3-point specialist that can knock down shots and give you a 12 to 15 points a game.
yeah, I can see that. I would say I can see what your comparison is with that. I would say maybe Buddy has the difference in. I mean, it's not like he has a handle, but he is able to kind of create off the dribble with a shot. He doesn't have a lot of height, but he is a pretty strong looking two guard. And I also think that he's going to get a lot of open looks and he's going to succeed if Anthony Davis can stay healthy. And I mean, if those two can work with each other and feed off each other, I mean, I could see something special in a few years for the two of them.
Oh yeah, I think that will benefit him the most because Davis is always going to be double teamed, so Buddy Hield is always going to have open looks if they, have other shooters around him. So I don't think he'll have trouble with that. I just feel like Buddy will probably take him a couple years for him to get fully acclimated with the NBA game. But he'll be fine because just like he did in college, he wasn't great when he first started, but then his junior and his senior season especially, he definitely improved a lot. And he was the player of the year, last year. So my next topic I want to talk about is, do you guys think that the summer league should be longer? Because I know each year the summer league gets more and more popular, and I know with these, especially during July when there's nothing going on. I mean, most of us we're forced to watch baseball, golf, tennis, stuff like that, and or some of us don't watch none of that. But I used to watch tennis, but
I'll try tennis here and there, but I mean, I can agree with you that it is a struggle during this time of the year. I'd like to see it longer. For one point, I think what we have now, it's like you said, it is becoming more popular, and maybe I just haven't watched it as much the last few years, but I thought this year's was probably one of the most entertaining that I've watched. And in terms of guys just putting on performances and some of the late game heroics, like we saw in that championship game against the Timberwolves and the Bulls. So you can see a lot of these guys, when they're on the line, they can make a lot of big plays. But I like to see it longer because I think it's a small sample size. Because with it being shorter, maybe a guy is on fire for a week and his numbers look really good, and maybe a guy that's really good usually isn't really doing what, maybe his shot is just off. That happens for guys, and it looks bad, and then I think we need more of a bigger sample size to really get a determination on these players, and also to give us something else to watch during these months when it's a little dry.
how long would you want it to be if you want it longer? Like, would you want it an extra 2 weeks, a month?
I think maybe a month is pushing it, just in terms of because, I mean, yeah, this summer we have the Olympics, but it's not like that's every summer, so it's not like the two would be bumping into each other. But maybe just in terms of like a lot of these coaches, maybe some of them, maybe like the Cavaliers coaching staff, started all the way back in when did they start? October, and they went all the way to late mid June, and then just 2 weeks later they had to start up again. Majority of them, and it also gives the guys a little bit of a break in between because in just about a month and a half or so, they're going to be starting to do training camp and stuff like that. So the guys do need rest too.
And speaking of that, that's a good segue to my next point about, do you feel like players like I'm not Brandon Ingram, but Ben Simmons should be required to play every summer league game because he sat out a summer league game, and Isaiah Thomas was right at his throat because he was saying he's young, he didn't play and he didn't participate in any of the tournaments. That's why that LSU didn't participate in any of the postseason tournaments like the NIT or whatever they would have been invited to. So do you feel like that's going to be the reason why Ben Simmons doesn't reach his potential, because he seems like a guy who cares about his image, his brand, instead of caring about getting better at the game of basketball?
That's a pretty tough one, but I do think that is gonna affect maybe not his his skill, but I mean that in itself will definitely affect how people look at him. And I mean his that's definitely a knock on his work ethic. You know, you want they draft he's the number one draft pick. You want a hard worker as the number one draft pick, and I feel like the Sixers have lost like a lot of hope on him. Like I mean, they've had some pretty interesting draft choices the last three
Yeah,
years. You know, just drafting full on centers.
yeah, they finally got themselves a forward or a guard at this point, right?
Exactly, exactly. So I feel like you know with the heavy pressure of you know having to hold a franchise together, I feel like he needs to step it up in that sort of sense. You know, especially with the work ethic.
Um, I would agree with that, and I mean, there's two ways to look at it. You can look at the way that it isn't a good way, a good image to have, especially as your first pick. I mean, you want to see your first pick or any guy that you're drafting, whatever it may be, to want to compete. Screw the image. You want to be going after the other guys. All you grow up since you're an AAU. Always compared to the other guys, and then you get into college and how often do you really play each other? Remember a few years back we could talk about when Jabari Parker was in Duke and Andrew Wiggins was on Kansas, and everybody wanted to see that matchup.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to see it happen, and I don't believe they even got to face each other when it came around to the tournament because, I mean, at least they were out there competing and they got their team to that point. But they both, I think, had poor showings. I think Wiggins struggled with his jump shot and then they kind of fell off, and Jabari wasn't able to really do much with it after he dominated for the majority of that season. But I would want to see Simmons compete, but I can also look at it on his point of view is see him be a competitor, but also before he knew he was going to be the first pick, bar some crazy, catastrophic thing happening, and the only reason he played the year of college is because he had to. So maybe he's looking at it as, I want to be on this team LSU. I forgot the reason why he even chose LSU. I'm not sure if it was because of his father or there's some connection, but he's not on. I mean, LSU is a great team for maybe say football, but we haven't really seen them in the big spotlight for basketball or he's position like Kansas or Kentucky or something like that, or Duke, to be competing, at a championship level. So maybe since he knew that going in, maybe he want to compete in some of these tournaments. Maybe to, the less games you play, the less chance there is to injury. And although that looks bad on the fan and teams and for people that are looking at him and how they're going to view him, he's got to look at his career because say he tears an ACL, God forbid, and there's getting drafted, and maybe that's why, but there's a lot to look at it for.
Yeah, but you could also say I think the reason why he picked LSU, to be honest with you, he didn't want competition because if he went at a Duke or a North Carolina or Kansas, he probably wouldn't have been the first pick. He would have been maybe the fourth or fifth pick, or maybe even dropped out of the top 10 because there would have been a player on that team that more than likely would have performed better than him. And if he went on a KU team, Bill Self never, has a freshman, have a great, season. Like, when you look at his numbers, you're like, okay, this guy didn't really have that great a season. Like, his numbers aren't that great. He usually has a junior or senior laden team. Like, he never has a bunch of freshmen that lead the team and, win the player of the year and stuff like that. It's a real team oriented, atmosphere.
I'm gonna have to agree with your point there. I mean, it's pretty true that he was pretty much the number one option there at LSU, and definitely he would have had to share the spotlight. And I mean, the fact that he was just the only top dog at LSU like definitely brought more attention to that. Everyone's like, oh, look at this guy on this relatively unknown school for for basketball, and here he is doing this, passing like that, getting triple doubles or triple double machine, something like that. And he probably would not be getting those opportunities had he been on a really good ball team in college.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm not really high on Ben Simmons, but I could be wrong. He could be, player. He could be rookie of the year next year. I doubt it. I think it'll be Chris Dunn, like I said before. But we'll just see about that. So I'm gonna kind of switch gears and talk about the Olympics. So The Olympics is starting pretty soon, in a couple weeks. And what do you guys think will be the starting five for the Olympic team?
Starting point guard definitely has to be Kyrie Irving. I mean, he just won a ring, and that shit broke my heart.
Um,
But yeah, Kyrie definitely at the point. I could definitely put Clay there at the shooting guard as well. I mean,
Mhm.
you got if Clay and Kyrie are there, I mean that's pretty much another set of splash bros for the Olympic team. And I mean everybody on this team can hit threes, which is insane to think about. And for me, I'd like to put Paul George in at a starting small forward. I mean, he definitely does. I feel like he definitely deserves the chance that he missed to shine on the international spotlight. With that gruesome leg injury. And I put Kevin Durant at the four maybe, and probably for center I'd start off with DeAndre Jordan. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins is definitely a really nice pick to put at the start, but I feel like you'd need DeAndre's defense at the start of games better. And,
Interesting.
I feel like Cousins would be good coming off the bench as a scoring center, because I mean you could always put him at the power forward, switch him out with KD, and just have Jordan and Boogie hold down the front court.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all your list. I mean, because like I said, it's really self. I mean, the really your 1 through 4. I mean, I don't think any of us can argue that's really what you would have. Like if you looked at like all the players on this year's team, but I think the five, I completely disagree. I think you got to have Boogie Cousins because he can shoot threes and he can score. And I think with the international game, you got to have players that can score the ball and especially shoot threes because it's not like the NBA where you have to have defense and all that stuff. You got to have players that can run up and down the floor and score at will because you got to just outscore people. You got to run them out of the gym. With DeAndre Jordan, you really have a player that can't shoot free throws, is not a great offensive player, and needs someone to lob him up the ball for him to score. The only thing he is good for is defense. You don't need really any defense if you can outscore people. So I just feel like you got to have Boogie there, and like I said, you can have DeAndre in the second unit with him, Draymond Green, and that second unit that they have out there because I think he'd be stronger with that unit. So I don't know, Brandon, what you think, but like between me and him, because I feel like you're probably gonna side with me because
so well, starting at the one, I'm probably gonna go with Kyrie because what is it? We have Kyrie on the roster at the point. I think those are the only 2 point guards on the roster, and
yeah, you got to pick Kyrie
Kyrie
over
torched them
Lowry.
in the
Yeah,
Eastern Conference Finals, and I think no, but yeah, I think we can easily put Kyrie over Lowry. I would say at the two, I would agree that we have to put Clay at the two because I mean, um, he's people. I've heard that the best, but they usually put Clay on the player when he's defending. And on offense, he could pretty much get his shot from everywhere now. He's matured a lot over the last few years. Before he was just kind of a standstill shooter. Now it's off the dribble. He's secretly stronger than he looks, and he's able to get in the post. I think he'll be very versatile in this Olympics, so I'll go with him at the two. Um, I can see Paul George at the three, and I like Paul George a lot for this. I actually think he's actually my dark horse pick to be Olympics MVP. If we look back just a few years ago, Paul George, I mean, he was to in once in my innings because Paul George was carrying that team. And I'm three. At the four, we go with Kevin Durant, obviously. I don't think there's any debate for that. Jordan, I do agree with Cam's point that it is more offensive oriented, but if we look back a few years ago, actually Tyson Chandler, and he wasn't in there really for offense. He was clean up the offensive
Mhm.
glass, block shots, and I think we can all say that DeAndre Jordan's probably way more efficient at all those things, other than free throw shooting,
Yeah.
than Tyson Chandler in those categories. And with all those scorers on the floor at a time, that much anyway, the fifth pound the ball inside, then they could put DeMarcus Cousins because he'll be eaten up. And but I think they'll probably side with DeAndre Jordan at the starting
Interesting.
center.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess I can see your point with that, but I mean, we all know that Boogie Cousins is gonna get more minutes than DeAndre for sure. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
but I can see it with them probably starting him at the beginning of the game and then kind of seeing where it goes. But I feel like the only teams that really they're gonna have to worry about and maybe have DeAndre for sure as a starting lineup is against teams like Spain, who got bigs that can score and defend, down low. Because with Spain they got the Gasol brothers, and then you got Ibaka. I mean, all the other teams they're not big enough for USA to have to really worry about having really a true center down low in the starting lineup.
Um,
Oh.
I think we lost him.
I think he's back.
um, you guys there? My side keeps freezing up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Ooh.
we're still here.
Okay, all right. What was the last point you made? I'm sorry.
I was saying that the only team that really USA got to worry about as far
Spain.
as bigs are concerned are Spain with the Gasol brothers and Ibaka, because they they really have the size to really mess USA up. Because you remember last Olympics it was like
Yeah,
that. Like USA was steamrolling through everybody, and then and every year it seems like when they face Spain they struggle because
they
they
don't have
got,
the bigs.
yeah, exactly.
I guess to that point, I would agree with that. I think an article came out either yesterday or this morning. I think Marc Gasol has pulled his name out of the Olympics, I believe.
Okay.
But there's still, I believe Powell is still going to play, and I don't see why not Serge wouldn't. So yes, there still are those big guys that they still will have to worry about. And but I mean, I could see Boogie probably getting more minutes, but maybe towards the end of games, unless they're playing Spain, I'd probably see Draymond starting at the center,
Interesting.
or
I,
not
I
even starting, but finishing the games at center.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, I, I wouldn't. I could see why they would do that because, like I said, Draymond is real versatile, but I just feel like he's probably too small against like the international players. Like he would probably get eaten alive down there. Like with the NBA, a lot of the teams are going small ball, so it helps them. While back in the day, Draymond couldn't do what he's doing now. He couldn't play the five against players like Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Draymond does offer a lot of strength for his size, and he's a pretty skilled player. I mean, he can rack up a triple double. We've seen a lot of that the past season, and I actually do agree with you, Baron. I think he will they might go with Draymond for closing games. I mean, USA small ball is going to be deadly back in the
Mm.
international play. We all got to admit that. There's a lot of size. I mean, you can call it small ball, but you really think about it, if you do downsize on the team, you still all these guys are averaging like what 6'7" in height,
Yeah.
6'7", 6'8" in height. That's not that bad, stacking up against other guys. And if everyone out there on the floor hits a three, that's why small ball works. It spaces out the floor heavily. Not a lot of bigs can roam the paint that well if they're gonna leave their man out there on a three.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, and this is probably where we're really going to be completely different in our picks about this, is what is your dream team Olympic squad if everybody came out to Rio this year?
Mm.
Your starting five. Who's that dream team starting five?
So you're saying if all the guys that usually are to play that decided not to were to come, who would be my favorite starting five to put out of those guys?
That's right.
Um, I mean, a lot of people would point towards Steph, but I mean, I'm a Cleveland fan, so I was happy they won, that the Cavaliers won. But I also can recognize that even though he didn't like to admit it, Steph was hurt, and that he probably, even if he were to come out to Rio, that it probably wouldn't be that. I mean, he's still pretty effective, but he still wouldn't be full strength. So I think they'd still probably go with Kyrie. I think maybe I'm not sure. Did Chris Paul decline? I'm not. I don't. I mean, I wouldn't see why
Yeah,
he wouldn't be
yeah,
an
yeah,
MVP.
yeah, yeah. He
Okay.
definitely declined.
But I mean, I think maybe it'd probably be between maybe, or there's also Russell Westbrook. There's so many options. Uh, I guess without Steph, they'd probably second would probably be Russell that people would probably go with. And that's what I'll do. As much as I do love Kyrie, I'll probably put Russell at the one. At the two guard, um, position he probably used to play, I'd probably move Paul George up to the two. As good as Klay Thompson is at shooting, and I guess you do need that shooting in. If we're just talking about, if we're just talking about a favorite five to put
Oh
starting out,
no,
or the one
we're,
that
we're talking about
cohesive,
we're talking about starting five. Don't matter position. We're just talking about
implemented cohesion, all that. Probably
exactly.
have Paul George out there. I love his game. He's able to shoot off the dribble attack. I just there's really nothing Paul George can't do, which is kind of disappointing why he doesn't get more recognition. Um, LeBron has to be in there with ease, has to be. Durant has to also be in there, and then that's interesting. Um, hmm, as a five, not sure. Maybe I'd throw Klay Thompson in there. Maybe not to be the five to save my position, but because I could probably see LeBron running center. Because I mean,
Yeah.
they did it every once in a while in Miami, and LeBron's effective at any position. So, I mean, I'd probably throw Klay Thompson in there, just with his ability to score and play defense, and that keeps everybody around the 6'7" height, other than Westbrook, who I think is like 6'4", 6'5". But I mean, you're looking at a lineup like that. How do you stop it? So that's probably my starting five.
So what about you, Paulo? Is any differences between your starting five and Brandon's?
Well, at the one position for point guard, I will go with. I was gonna go with Russell Westbrook. I mean, I myself am a Golden State fan, and I mean, as much as I do like Steph Curry, I don't know, for some reason I just don't see him being on my dream team for a reason. But I do put
Interesting.
Clay in there. I do put Clay because I really like what Clay can bring with defense, shooting, pretty much everything nowadays. Now that he can drive really well too. I also agree with the LeBron and KD. I mean, you can't really not have them on a team for especially for if you're choosing across stars in the NBA, you have to have both of them in there. But I would myself for the fifth spot, I myself would put in DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, I'm a big fan of Boogie, and I actually really like how he plays. And I also, on a side note, I hope he can take the Kings to the playoffs eventually.
If he stays there.
Yeah, if he stays.
All right. So my starting five is probably completely different from you guys's
Oh,
because even with not 100% Steph Curry, because I'm pretty much just taking the account if they were healthy. I got Chris Paul at the one at the point because I feel like he's the best point guard, pure point guard in the league,
agreed.
and he's probably the best leader in the NBA. I mean, you see how much better DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin have been with
Yeah.
Chris Paul on that team because I feel like both those players, they're good players, but I don't think they would be anywhere near the players they are without Chris Paul there.
hmm
And like I said, I'd have Steph at the two because he's pretty much a shooting guard as a point guard. I would have Kawhi Leonard at the three because he's the best two-way player in the league, and you gotta have. I'm surprised neither one of you guys said Kawhi Leonard because I feel like he's a top five player, best two-way player in the league, and you gotta have defense on there if you're gonna have some scoring. And then you got Kevin Durant at the four, and then you got LeBron James at the five, which I think with those forwards for the 3, 4, and 5 position, I feel like they'd be unbeatable because they
Yeah.
have the length, they have the defense, and they have the scoring punch that you need beat any team. Like you wouldn't even need Steph or Chris Paul with those three, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's actually funny. I almost forgot. I mean, not almost. I actually did forget about Kawhi Leonard there. I mean, see, that's just as another thing. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, including myself, are guilty of kind of forgetting about Kawhi Leonard. And I mean, I think he's set to have another big season.
Oh, he's improved tremendously every
Yeah.
year, every season that he's played. The only season that he really didn't improve was, I think, his third season, but that's because he was hurt, like most of the year. But he's definitely improved a lot, especially his jump shooting. Because when he
Oh,
Oh
started the
yeah,
league, his jump shooting was like, I think, 20-some% or something from three or something like that.
yeah, he's definitely improved in that facet. And also, I mean, you can look at the league and can you really debate against him like for him to win the defensive player of the year yet again? Like it's just his intangibles and like his length with his arms and his strength and just his IQ on defense that he's probably gotten a lot better at being under Popovich's tutelage. I mean, I couldn't really even see him not winning the defensive player again in the next few years after that. So that's a guy like Paolo. I guess I also forgot about that. I should have added on.
I mean, he's a Spur. I mean, you see Tim Duncan, he retired, and no one really even talked about him after the first couple of days, And I feel like Kawhi Leonard's the same type of player. He's not flashy. He does things the right way. He's a great player that no one talks about, and he'll probably win an MVP before he retires. If he continues to improve, because he definitely makes the most contributions of any player that is not named, the Kevin Durant or LeBron James. Steph Curry, I feel like he's a great player, but I feel like he's not going to win MVP anymore because Durant's on that team, and
Yeah,
I feel like they're going to penalize him the same way, both those players actually, the same way that they did LeBron James when he went to Miami. Like he didn't win MVP the year he went to Miami his first year because they were like, okay, you wanted to be a super team, okay, we're not going to make you the MVP, even though you had an MVP year and you should have won the MVP over. I think Derrick Rose won that
Derrick
year.
Rose. Yeah, it was Derrick Rose in that year.
So we're going to go to another point, and this is kind of a real controversial subject. And actually, the reason why I want to mention this is because I heard Pat Riley talk about having a franchise tag in the NBA, and I wanted you guys' thoughts on that. Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea, or are you indifferent with that?
in a sense, I'm indifferent, but I lean more towards the no. I mean, if it were to really happen, I don't think I'd be really opposed to it if it really did happen. But I mean, just thinking about it now, I don't think it should because I mean, players do like to go out and have their own free will about who to play with and whatnot. I mean, of course, some players can deny the franchise tag pretty much like the same way the NFL does it by like, they don't have to sign the contract or whatnot. But I feel like the whole franchise tag thing just seems a little weird for the NBA. I mean, the NBA is always more about the kind of free flowing nature, trades like you know all throughout the season. And I mean, I think that just fits. It just fits well with the NBA to have players choose their own thing.
I would agree with Paolo's point. You know, uh, it would kind of, you know, deter the kind of like how players feel freely to. And I mean, as we can see in football, a lot of guys that get franchise tags. I mean, I mean, you could make a point that a lot of guys in the NFL really don't like the franchise tag because they feel like they're ready to be, they feel like they've had a good season. They're ready to go out and make themselves a big name. I mean, Von Miller, I think, just got the second biggest contract in history and the biggest contract for a defensive player. And just a few weeks ago, they offered it. They were thinking about offering him the franchise tag. So you can see like the kind of difference that makes. And when he got offered that, he made it public how kind of angry and it turned off he was by it. And Denver realized, okay, this guy was our MVP of the Super Bowl. What an impact he had. Yeah, he's just one defensive player. We have other ones, but it was his impact that opened up the gateway for everybody else on defense against, for the rest of the season, for the whole season, and in terms of the Super Bowl, and kind of like keeping the Panthers' offense down. And if you were to do that in the NBA, I mean, we see how freely guys like to go back and forth. And just about a week or two ago with Dwayne, how it had been up in the air for a while about whether he was going to stay or go. And he eventually got turned off because Pat Riley would say that he wanted him to stay, but there's two parts to that. Did he really wanted him to stay? But also, if he was gonna try to pay him that money, I love Dwayne. He was one of my favorite players. He did have a great season last year, but we all know that his knees, even though they looked like they held up last season, he is on the wrong end of 30, and it doesn't look like he was. Some would believe that maybe if you pay him all that money after paying a guy like Whiteside and Dragic, that you don't have kind of a lot of money for the future. So that's probably what Riley's thought process was in that. So, I mean, if you throw in a franchise tag, I mean, that just might tick guys off even more and give you, like, maybe the teams and organizations themselves, yeah, they might have the player for another year, but, like, in terms of the future, it might not give them as much leverage with that player because maybe they may not want to return because they feel that they could always have that franchise tag put on them instead of getting a contract that they feel that they should deserve.
Yeah, so I actually think, I mean, that Pat Riley made a good decision because Dwayne Wade's 35 years old, which I didn't even know that. But so that's another reason why I wouldn't give him a 3-year contract. That's really what it came down to. It wasn't a 2-year. He wanted another year when he'd be 38 years old, making 20 million, a year, which that's ludicrous. Like I wouldn't give any player that amount of money for someone you know that age, unless you were LeBron James. I feel like LeBron James his career, he's gonna be all right. Like I don't feel like his game is gonna decline like people were saying, a few years ago, or even last season, not this past season, but the season before that, where I feel like he looked awful to start the season. Like I was telling people, I was like, oh yeah, he's on the decline. He's definitely, not gonna win another championship. He definitely did. I mean, his jump shot was just horrendous. I mean, I don't know what's been going on with this jump shot the last couple of years, but I feel like in Miami it was his best opportunity to win multiple championships. And if they had Miami LeBron his last year, I feel like they probably would have won the championship.
I would just so you're saying the previous year, so last year's finals, 2015, when he didn't have
Yeah.
Kyrie and Love. Um, I would say that in terms of his skill, he probably possibly put up better numbers. But I mean, also Miami, even though he did add some post game, I think you can see now he's added that more in. And I mean, I could hear people with all the talk about, oh, he's on the decline and all that, and I don't think he's nowhere near dropping off, like you're saying. But if you watch him closely, I'm not saying it's any big drop off, but there is certain parts of it. Like he came into this league, with not having that great of a jump shot and stuff like that. But he could pass. He had good floor vision. He played defense, rebound, all the things. But a lot of it played with athleticism. His athleticism played a big part into his game, and you can see some of that starting to go. Like we still see a few monster dunks throughout the year, but I mean, Bogut is a big guy, but there'd be times in the finals, like maybe a few years back, Miami LeBron would fly over him, and this LeBron can dunk on guys, but maybe a guy like a Bogut or a Festus Ezeli and stuff, he kind of has to maneuver himself around him because he can't really go as high as he maybe once did. So in terms of his jump shot, like you said, I think that needs to get a lot better. So eventually there will be a decline, but if he gets that jump shot better, it won't be anytime soon. And
Yeah.
if he can just keep using his post game, and I mean, he doesn't even have to use that much energy the next few years. If we've all seen Kyrie over the last few years, and he's a great player, especially after how this finals ended. If he can stay on that trend and he can continue that, and if they do decide to stay with Love, that they keep trying to get him into the system more, it'll be a full year under Tyronn Lue. So maybe that'll work out better for him, and he won't have to do as much, so he can have a longer career.
Yeah, and I saw that when we saw shades of prime LeBron, the last 3 games of the NBA Finals, like he looked just like he did with Miami, and I was like, okay, that's the LeBron I wanted to see because
Yeah.
I feel like if he would have played like he did, the first few games, which he really wasn't that impressive in my opinion, they probably would have lost the series in 6 because I honestly didn't think the Cavs had any chance to win the series. To be honest with you, after the first 4 games, because I was like, oh yeah, Golden State's going to beat him in 5 games because Golden State has more firepower. The Cavs don't got enough weapons. They just got Kyrie and LeBron, and Kevin Love is a no-show. So I just feel like what how can Golden State lose this series when they won 73 games and they just beat an OKC team that should have beat them the previous series? So I just feel like, LeBron James, he definitely stepped up. He showed why he's still the best player in the world, because people were saying that Steph Curry is the best player, and I actually started to believe him after this season, because last season I didn't believe him. I was like, okay, it's just a one season thing. It's kind of like the same thing that they said with Derrick Rose, that he was going to be the next great player, and you see how that turned out.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of get to my point about the franchise tag, because I never really said my opinion on that. I actually feel like it's actually a good thing for the league, because you see all these. I think we're going to start seeing more super teams, and with the franchise tag, you can kind of stop that, and it hurts fan bases and hurts the league, because teams don't want to go to uh, a, a bunch of and then be with a bunch of rookies or second year players, because you see with the Thunder, it would have helped them if they would have a franchise tag. They could have put a franchise tag on Kevin Durant this past season, so they can keep him, and then give him as much money as they want, for the 1 year, and then they can work out an agreement next season on kind of a longer term deal. Instead of, you see with Kevin Durant now, like, he's actually regretting the decision because he's getting harassed every day. He's can't stand the pressure of making a decision. That's why I don't think that Kevin Durant's going to make another move. Like, people are saying, oh, Kevin Durant's going to, after this one season, going to get a championship and go back to Oklahoma City. No, that's not going to happen, because you saw how much hate he got just this past go, and he didn't do nothing compared to what LeBron did. But I feel like the hate is probably just as bad, if not worse.
Well, in terms of that, I mean, maybe he didn't do what LeBron did in terms of how he did it with the media, because LeBron's is much more explosive in that regard. But when people make that comparison, I think Kevin Durant's might have been worse in totality, because yeah, LeBron went to a team with like a Dwayne Wade and a Bosh, but they were going somewhere to create something. People go say, "Oh, LeBron needed Dwayne Wade's help to win." Yeah, LeBron needed another star, but if you look at that prior season before LeBron decided to go to Miami, Cleveland was better than Miami. So it's not like LeBron was going to a better like situation in terms of like how the record was before. But yeah, it was better for him how that team was going to form. But Durant's going to a team that's already a champion.
They won 73 games,
Could have
and
easily
they
been
don't
a
need him.
back-to-back champion. So, I really think his move was weaker on his end because, I mean, like you said earlier with the MVPs, both of them, Steph and KD, were both former MVPs. For as long as they'll be on the same team, I don't see either being an MVP again. So,
And the craziest thing with that whole situation is you have the last three MVPs on one team. That's why I think the franchise tag is a good thing, because the competitive balance has to be restored. Because I don't know about you, but the first year, okay, that'd be fun to see, but we don't want to see one team run the league, you know, with a bunch of stars and no one else have a shot. That's why I think, this actually gets segue to my next point, why I think that Russell Westbrook is going to be traded to the
Oh,
San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio Spurs. Wow.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yes.
All right. Well, why do you think the Spurs? Because
Okay.
for me, just real quick, for me, I think Westbrook will be traded elsewhere. But why do you think the Spurs?
Okay. So the reason why, there's actually three reasons. One, uh, RC Buford and Sam Presti are best friends. He's a Spur. He's been in the Spurs organization, so that's actually going to make the most sense. Number two, the reason why the Thunder want to have a chance to get back at what KD did, and the San Antonio Spurs is the only team that has the cap room and actually makes the most sense to be able to take down the Golden State Warriors. Because really, when you think about it, you got Golden State 1, and then there's a huge drop off from number 2 with San Antonio in the West, and then you got the Clippers 3, and then after that, no one else even matters. Like, and the Clippers have no chance in heck of beating Golden State. The only reason why the Spurs have a very, very low chance is because they got the best front line in the league. You got Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, and Aldridge. down there. How many teams will be able to compete with that down there? Like you're not gonna they're a bunch of trees. So when you
Yeah,
have
that's
Westbrook with that too, that's a very formidable roster that can do a lot of damage out west and probably win the whole thing because I don't think even LeBron will be able to compete with that because they would have enough defense and enough length to be able to stop pretty much any position, not name the shooting guard position.
I do think though that I mean, well, your point does make sense if Russell Westbrook was traded to the Spurs, but I don't think that he will be because I don't think the Spurs have the assets to interest the Thunder fully. I mean, with
That's,
the with Westbrook's market value, you have to admit it's very enticing to just put him out there on the block and see teams just throw money, throw players, throw draft picks at him. And I mean, I feel like if the Thunder really wanted to undergo like a rebuild, which I feel like is gonna start leaning towards that way. With if they do trade Westbrook, they have Oladipo and Adams as they're the mediators for the rebuild. But I do think a team in playoff contention with draft picks will probably be like the highest shot at getting Westbrook, and I think that might be the Celtics. I mean, I don't think Westbrook would
uh,
really like playing on the East Coast with Boston, and I don't know if he'd really fit there. But I mean, in terms of assets that a team can offer, the Celtics have probably the best assets they can offer for
uh,
Westbrook.
a reason why I don't think he would go to the Celtics, it will be point blank that the Celtics can wait till the season ends. They're not going to waste giving up players like Jalen Brown or their we know it's going to be a top five pick next year from the Nets. They're not going to give up those assets, and they're probably going to have to give up Avery Bradley too. They're not going to
Yeah.
give up those players for Russell Westbrook, and Westbrook will be in a worse position than he is with the Thunder. And there's no guarantee that he's going to actually sign an extension with that team. So that's what makes this situation real difficult because there really isn't that many teams that he'll probably go to that he'll agree to resign with that team and then also be able to trade the assets that the Thunder will probably need. That's why I don't think that he'll be traded before the season starts, but he will be traded during the season, and he'll probably be traded to the Spurs because all the other teams will be like, okay, why waste and give up our best assets when we can just wait till the season ends and see where he goes? Because the Thunder are going to trade him. They're not going to have to lose another superstar player at the end of the season and come up with nothing and then be holding their balls between themselves because they don't know what the heck happened and he promised them that he's going to stay and then he doesn't. So that's my take on that.
Um, there's, I mean, there's so many options with it. And Cam, I do see your point with the friendship between Presti and what was the Spurs one? I'm sorry,
RC Buford.
RC Buford. That's right. Um, but I do agree with Paolo in the terms of if they're going to, even though the Thunder will want to do what they can, I guess, maybe to get back at Durant. They are an organization, though, and as much as that does hurt, they do have to look at it in terms of their organization and what they will be able to do for themselves in the future. And I don't see the Spurs having the assets to give to Oklahoma that is sufficient enough for Oklahoma in terms of their own development. Because I mean, unless they're ready to say, all right, here's LaMarcus Aldridge or a Kawhi Leonard, which I don't think the Spurs are going to part with either. Um, I don't see them trading him to there. And even if he was to get traded to there, I don't know if he'd sign the extension because I don't know how much his play style really fits into that system. He's a guy that likes to have the ball. He likes to get around 20 to 25. Greg Popovich's system is Tony Parker's a guy really that kind of gets around 15 points a game. Westbrook's not that kind of guy. Tony Parker's a guy that gets assists because he simply likes to pass it in the flow of the offense. People have been on Westbrook for his passing, but he has improved a lot. But he gets a lot of assists off because he has the ball and he attacks the basket and he dumps it off. Not more so in the terms of like a passing offense and stuff like that. But I do see Boston as an option because of the picks they have because they had a lot of picks and other than their top maybe first round pick and maybe another pick. I don't think Boston really thought they were going to be holding on to all those picks that they had. They really wanted to trade that into a player and try to make a trade happen, and nothing really came of it. And they did get an Al Horford. I do like Isaiah Thomas a lot in Boston, but I mean, a lot of rumors have been going on saying that maybe the Thunder are looking to hold on to Westbrook because they feel they have a strong belief at probably getting Blake Griffin next summer, and that they like that combination. But
Yeah, I actually read about that. Yeah, but the regarding the San Antonio thing, actually agree that I don't think that he'll be traded to San Antonio straight up, but I think it'll be a three-team deal.
okay,
They'll get another team involved, and then that's how the deal's going to happen. Like, the Thunder will get their assets from another team. The Spurs will probably give them, also some stuff that they can, like probably a late first round pick, maybe a Danny Green or someone like that, and then probably their first round pick they got this year, and to get Westbrook, because there's no point of keeping DeJounte Murray if you got a Westbrook coming in there, which I think that he's going to be a stud because I actually been really impressed with him. But I definitely agree that the teams that he'll probably go to if he gets traded will definitely be either the Celtics because of the assets, like I said before, the San Antonio Spurs, or another team that actually you guys, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned, Minnesota Timberwolves. They got a lot of assets. And it
hmm.
would
I
make
don't
a
think they would
lot of
trade
sense.
him though. They don't really need Westbrook. I mean, they could definitely do it, but I
It,
mean, you have
I
Ricky Rubio, solid starting point guard, Chris Dunn's potential, and then I mean you have Levine at the two, still there. You got Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, Gorgie James coming up too. I mean, there's a lot of things going well for the Timberwolves at the moment. I don't think they want to break up the young core. I think
Break
they
up
kind
that
of
young core because if what's it called? If the Thunder are going to think about trading to Minnesota, they're going to expect either getting a Karl Anthony Towns or an Andrew Wiggins in return, and those are kind of the two pillars that Minnesota's looking at building with. And I mean, you break one of those up, and then what? I know they're looking for an upgrade over Ricky Rubio, but
I actually disagree. I actually think that they would trade Chris Dunn, a first round pick, and probably mm, I don't know, some other player. I can't think of a player, but that probably that and that they'd probably trade that straight up. They probably wouldn't even want to try
have
to
to
get
break up that
Wiggins,
core.
or I actually think that'd be an upgrade though. I think I'd take Westbrook over Chris Dunn in a heartbeat because Westbrook is a superstar, but you don't know if Chris Dunn will be that next level superstar player, and they're trying to win now. They're not trying to wait 3 or 4 years down the road for Chris Dunn to reach the same potential that Westbrook already is.
I think in terms of that, um, it might be since those guys are young and they're still growing, and everybody's waiting for Minnesota to finally like hit that that switch and finally hit that next gear and start improving and get towards playoff contention. But I mean, unless you're a team like maybe Cleveland that already has a team that has beaten Golden State, I know there's a new addition with Kevin Durant, but I mean, unless you're one of those very few teams that actually has a shot, let's be honest. I mean, I don't think Minnesota's in that position. Even with as great as Westbrook can be, I don't know if he puts him in a position to be neck and neck with a Golden State, just because they don't have that much of experience as a team. I think in terms of Minnesota, their best window is around 4 years down the road when maybe the Golden State kind of, powerhouse is kind of, maybe gotten a little older, possibly separated, had their reign. Because I don't think any other team right now should be thinking win now because I don't think anybody has a shot.
That's why I think that San Antonio makes the most sense because they're the only team because the Cavs are way over cap space and there's no way
That's
they
true.
could
Yeah.
afford them. But that's why San Antonio makes sense because the Thunder can get their revenge for KD leaving, and they're the only team that has any chance in heck of beating Golden State. Like every other team, like there's no way they can make it work. Even if they did trade one of their players, like even if the Clippers got Westbrook and they didn't trade Blake Griffin or Chris Paul, and they got Westbrook. Just I don't know why they would do that, but if they did, they still wouldn't have enough to beat Golden State.
Yeah.
Like the Clippers, for some reason, like they have all the talent in the world every year, but they never like get over the hump. Like it's the weirdest thing in the world. Like
I
I
think
mean, I feel like
injuries.
the Clippers are just a big disappointment in a sense because I mean, I root for them, but like, every year you think they're gonna, bust out and do something else. They just can't get over the hump. I mean, that last, what is it, 2 years ago or last year, they lost 3-1 to the Rockets, and I definitely thought that Clippers team was way better than that Rockets team.
Oh, I agree with you, and I was upset because my Spurs lost to the Clippers team, and then the Clippers just laid an egg against the Rockets. I was like, if we saw this Clippers team, we should have beat this team. But that's a whole different story. I'm not even going to talk about that. But I do feel that with the what was I about to say? Oh yeah, with Westbrook, I feel like the reason why KD left was because he knew that Westbrook was gone. Like that's I've been saying that for months now. I've been telling people this because there's no reason, like in my opinion, that why he would leave. Like I thought Westbrook would be the one to leave before KD would leave. To be perfectly honest with you, because KD's personality matches Oklahoma City. Like Westbrook's personality is like an LA, personality. Like KD's like real, quiet, doesn't really have much of a personality. And, he likes to be to himself. And now with all this pressure that he's been getting lately, he can't handle it. And I don't know if you saw the report of him spending, after he made the decision, spending the next 48 hours in his bed. Like he didn't leave his house or anything.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always. I guess maybe Kevin Durant was thinking of that threat, or maybe Westbrook may leave, and then what about me if I decide to stay long term? Um, it's just kind of crazy where we are with this NBA right now. To really think that the Thunder were as close as they were to being 3-1 up on the Warriors, and then choking, and then now where Durant has decided to go and back to the Clippers. I mean, it is disappointing, just like you guys. I do tend to root for him. I've always been a Chris Paul fan. I like Blake Griffin. I think he's improved a lot. And it's always like, how come they haven't been able to get over the hump? I mean, a big part of that does play into injuries. I mean, right now, I mean, as great as the Thunder were looking, I mean, we could be sitting here saying it would have been the Clippers versus the Cavaliers in the finals. Because, I mean, yeah, things didn't go Golden State's way because Steph Curry, went down in that I believe it was the first round series, and then it looked like the gates opened up for the Clippers, and then the day that report came out of Steph Curry being out for the next 2 weeks, that exact night, Blake Griffin and Chris Paul both were out the rest of the playoffs. So I mean, things sometimes just don't go your way. I mean, the Clippers finally could have, even if it would have been due to the fact because the Warriors would have been down a man. They could have been in that position, So it's just kind of how it works sometimes.
Yeah, they definitely are the most unlucky team in the league.
Clipper curse.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're about to wrap this up. So I appreciate everybody who's tuning in on YouTube. Because I know I sent a couple links for YouTube, and I appreciate anyone that actually checks on this show a little bit later on. I'm gonna have a podcast later. I'm also gonna make an audio only version for people that want to listen to it in their car. So tune in next week. We're gonna have more topics to talk about, and appreciate you guys tuning into the hot seat. Bye.
All right. See you.
All right, take it easy, guys.